Hi, it's Jason, the guy who makes the blinky lights work. This is a quick video to introduce some of the concepts that you would need to know before you deploy your IPBrick. Traditionally, IPBrick has always has its origins as an appliance, as you see before you, an on-premise appliance that sits at the edge of your network. So it's divided into two segments. You got the internet, which is hostile, private, public, and then you've got the LAN, which is your internal trusted network. So it's always carried this concept of two zones: public zone, where it takes a very defensive stance because obviously it's the internet, and internally you have your ET80 LAN or your local LAN. This is where all your phones and your clients and your desktops and your DHCP, this is the trusted secure network. And obviously outside we've got the hostile network, which is the public internet. Now with the introduction of cloud computing, that concept is not quite as distinct as that, especially if you wish to run your IPBrick in a cloud environment. Most of us will be consuming the services of the IPBrick from here on the public network. So this is just basically to introduce the concept of, even though in this particular example we've got a device with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 4 connections, some of the GT2s have multiple network cards. Every IPBrick, including the virtual ones, always have two distinct zones built in by policy: ETH1 and ETH0. The first network card is always trusted, and the secondary card is the public one. Now, this has always been fine when you're running on-premise at the edge of your network, but it becomes a bit of a problem when you try to run it in the cloud, because traditionally, as a virtual machine, they will only present with you one network card, and that network card is public facing. So if you're creating a virtual machine, you will normally get one network card presented to your virtual machine in the cloud. Now if you've only got one, basically what we have, ET80 is now facing the public. Okay, now IPBrick have released a couple of images which allow you to use ETH, the first network card, as public facing. But traditionally, this is what you need to remember, and this affects how you deploy the IPBrick in the cloud. Now there's a couple of questions as well that you need to ask yourself before you deploy your IPBrick, bearing in mind there are two distinct zones. So I'll give you a couple of examples. For instance, if we have a handset in here, handsets can register using SIP on port 5060. There's no real special firewall rules you need to configure because it's in the trusted network. 5060 is normally SIP, and the IPBrick will also auto provision the phone quite happily. Now, if you've got a phone out on the internet, it's now in the hostile environment. So now the paradigm changes slightly. You have to be able to use phones that use either the OpenVPN to be able to connect to the hostile network securely to the IPBrick, or you use TLS or SIPs, which uses port 5061. Okay, and also all your services that you use on the IPBrick now take a different stance. You have to now use a more aggressive stance in your security. No more clear text, no more port 80. Use TLS, not SIP. You use SIPs or encryption, either SSL or IPsec. So these are the key things you have to bear in mind when you're consuming an IPBrick in the cloud or remotely from your branch office. So that's the first paradigm I want to relate in this video. The reasons for these videos is because a lot of people are becoming interested in IPBrick. The documentation is improving. The guys are very busy evolving IPBrick. It's improving, and I'm getting a lot of questions. So hopefully these videos which I'm putting out will help answer those questions. So Now we understand the two zones. Virtual machines as well as appliances have this paradigm, so you have to bear that in mind, and there are some tricks you need to do to be able to make the ET80, the first network card in a public virtual machine, the internet facing run rather than the trusted. Okay, there's also a couple of other things to remember about these particular zones. On the internet, your domain, in this case domain.com, is normally managed by a public name server, i.e. via GoDaddy, 2Cows, whoever you bought the domain from normally will offer you name services. You will need to enter a number of different DNS records for your public facing services to consume services on your internet facing address. I'm going to show you what those are in a minute. On the trusted network, the IPBrick looks after its own internal DNS zones, DNS zones and DNS records. So all your servers and all your phones and all your laptops and NAS servers and so forth will all use the services internally on ET80. Now externally, obviously we need to be able to resolve these same names to the external zone rather than internal. Now thankfully, because IPBrick is dependent on the internet, it's very important we get those records right. Now we do have a reference. If I go to wiki.ipbrick.com, they've very helpfully put a list of the different records that we require. An example, for instance, that shows you all the different services. Like we've got server name, we've got the VoIP records, WebRTC, CAF, UCOIP, Instant Messenger, iPortal Doc, and then we've got a number of different C names. Okay, and then SRV records. This is so UCOIP can work and they can load, a bit like an MX record in email. So when we want to make a voice call with your domain, these will help other IPBrick servers and potentially other VoIP servers locate where to send your telephone calls. Okay, and again here we have the same for the chat, because obviously IPBrick's got built-in XMPP, so we need to be able to forward those records for Jabber and XMPP. And here we also have the other ones, and of course our MX records for our to receive email, because obviously IPBrick has a number of different services: telephone, group-ware, email, all these different services. So this is a good reference point, the wiki.ipbrick.com. Again, it is evolving. Keep looking at it. This is a good reference point. I'll put this link in the description to help prepare for your installation of your IPBrick. Now there is also a couple of other things. If your IPBrick is in front of, in behind a firewall, we're also going to need a number of ports forwarded back to your IPBrick. There's a couple I disagree with myself. I probably wouldn't forward port 80. I don't see why we need port 80. We will probably need that because not all SIP providers, if you're going to subscribe to some DDIs or some incoming trunks, SIP trunks, not all providers use SIPs. But if you're going to register a handset or a soft phone, registration only takes place over that. But you can receive incoming calls from your provider over this. So in your firewall, you will have to forward these ports to the external interface of your IPBrick. So effectively, if that was a firewall, we will need these ports, if I can find it again, forwarded to our IPBrick. Okay. And my final point, because we depend so much on the internet, all these different services, okay, especially if you're using some of the group-ware features like activesync to sync your email and your calendars and so forth, a lot of mobile devices, including Google's Chrome browser, insist on having a valid certificate, a valid SSL certificate. Out of the box, IPBrick comes pre-configured with a self-signed certificate. Now, a lot of devices will not be able to they will complain and whinge, and it will cause you different problems. So you will need to buy a certificate. Okay, and again here, since 6.1, it is recommended. Here's an example. There are some within IPBrick. There is a method to actually request a certificate to create a CSR, and then upload that to whoever you buy your certificates from. Now, it's recommended that we buy a wildcard certificate. The reason why a wildcard certificate is recommended is because there are so many different domains that you can see for different services that the IPBrick uses. Okay, so we will need a wildcard domain. They cost a little more, but it's better off in the long run. So we need to buy an SSL certificate using the CSR method in IPBrick. Like I said, I don't want to labor this point too much. It's just literally a point of reference. I'm trying to highlight how the IPBrick works, how it's structured, and also the key things you need to be able to add to your public DNS records. So if you use GoDaddy, for example, you will need to know how to add CNAME records and add the following: SVR records, SRV records, so UQuake can work, and also your chat can work. So you need to add these records. Obviously, domain.com is just an example. It could be, I don't know, Trentis.com in my particular case, but obviously you'll replace with your domain. And whoever provider you're using, you will need to add these, and also the firewall rules, like I mentioned. And finally, don't forget the certificate, because you will get all sorts of different certificate warnings, and you'll have problems with activesync and also some of the other services. Google Chrome, for instance, when you're using Cafe, the video conferencing, you might have problems with that. So hopefully that introduction was helpful. It's a quick overview, but by all means, I'll keep putting these tips out on YouTube, and hopefully you'll find them useful, and that should reduce the number of questions people have about using this fantastic system. Okay, speak to you soon.